All right. Hi, everybody. Sorry that we're starting a little bit late. We had some tech issues, which is always great for a tech-based workshop. Doesn't look very good. Okay. Well, welcome to the streaming participants and to everybody here in Dallas. Okay, so this presentation is about using Padlet. And if you are joining us virtually, you can just raise your hand in the chat. And if you're here in person, you can raise your hand. Who has used Padlet before in any capacity? Whether you've made Padlet, someone sent you a Padlet. Okay, so some people yes, some people no. Okay, looks like it's about half and half. Okay, so I know we only have we have about an hour left now, right? And pretty much every workshop that I've been to last year and this year, last year was my first co-eb, everybody got to the end and was like, I still have 5 more slides left. What are we going to do? So for the people who are here, there's a handout, and at the very top of the handout, there's a big fat QR code, and that's the link to this slide presentation. And the screen that I'm sharing now, for those of you who are joining us virtually, that's the same QR code. It'll link to this presentation. And at the end of the presentation, there are extra resources that you can use after we're not together anymore. Okay, and if you're here virtually, just please let me know if you can't hear me. Right. So I just want to say that I love Padlet. I'm obsessed with Padlet to the point that I said I have to do a Padlet presentation. So my name is Mara Kotler. I'm from New York City. And here in Dallas, a lot of people say, wow, New York City, oh my goodness. Probably the most common comment I've gotten from people is, can you say coffee? Can you say water? So I've repeated the words coffee and water a whole bunch of times, but I'm an ESOL teacher speak now, right? So I'll keep it even-keeled. Okay, so Padlet is a great program because a lot of people need to use technology, right? Everybody needs to use technology. And if you're teaching, your students need to use technology. But a lot of us don't have a lot of tech skills. Everyone has a smartphone these days. But I know a lot of my students have their phone, they can text, they can make phone calls. That's kind of it, right? They don't know really how to use it. A lot of people are familiar with different websites, different programs, but when it comes to making your own website to share with people, that's really daunting. So a little background on me. As I said, I'm from New York City. I work for the Queens Public Library ESOL program. We have classes that run in the fall and the spring, and some other classes that run year-round. So all in total, with all the different kinds of classes we have, we run about 70 classes a semester. In a fiscal year, we see about 15,000 students. It sounds like a lot, but it's New York City, so it's on par for New York City. New York City is huge and is probably at least 50%, if not more, immigrant population. So really, it is on par, even though it sounds astronomical for some areas. And one of the reasons that I love using Padlet is because I have a lot of teachers. So I'm a staff developer. I'm also the lead instructor and the ESOL volunteer coordinator, right? Because when you have no funding, you wear as many hats as they're going to give you. And so I use Padlet as a way to reach everybody, to reach students, to reach volunteers, to reach staff. And also just for myself, just as a place to store resources that I need. So what we're going to do today is I'm going to give you a little overview of Padlet, and then we're going to look at a few examples. And I say a few because it might seem like it's a lot, but when you go onto Padlet, you'll see there are tons more that I'm going to show you, but I'm going to show you just a sample set of ones that I have used and like to use. And then for the people in person, there's a handout with a couple of QR codes. If you're here virtually, there'll be a slide with that QR code, and you'll get to interact with a couple of the Padlets. Because with Padlet, you can make websites to give to people. So they have resources on there that they can look at. But you can also use it as an interactive tool so that when you're teaching, your students can interact with the content. And in our program, we have, I think this semester, 13 virtual classes. out of our big bank of classes. And so this is really great for virtual classes because it's a way that virtual students can be interacting with the same content, right? When we're in classes, we say, okay, I'm going to break you up into small groups. You 4 sit here, you 4 sit here, but we have to use breakout rooms or something similar with virtual students. All right, so let's get into it. I'm going to use the clicker. Okay. All right, so the question is, why use Padlet? And I put that in here because somebody asked me, why should I use Padlet? We have Google Classroom. Let me see by a show of hands in the chat or in person, who uses Google Classroom for teaching, if you're teaching? Okay. Who likes using Google Classroom? Okay, so I know that like in some programs or some classes where it's very comprehensive, you need to assign work to the students, you need them to submit the work, you need to really keep track of a large bank of students. Google Classroom is extremely useful. A lot of people in adult literacy are not at that point, or they don't have classes like that, or they're not collecting the students' work online. It's very easy just to turn in the work, or we have classes that are sort of low stakes, low key. I'm going to give you a homework worksheet. Come in the next day, we're all going to go over it, right? It's not something that needs to be submitted. And so I have a lot of teachers that, well, actually most of my teachers do not use Google Classroom. And I have met teachers who say, I probably should use Google Classroom because I need a way to post things for my class, but it's so confusing for me and it's just not worth it, so I just don't use anything. And I just email the students every time I use a link that I want to give them, or I send them all an email with an attachment to a worksheet, which just floods everybody's email box. I don't know about you, but I know for me, a lot of my students have email but never check it, or they don't know how to use it, or more often than not, somebody set up the email account for them and they don't even know what the email address is, and you send them an email, it bounces back. They say, maybe it wasn't a 0, it was an O. No, maybe it's 2 L's, and then we kind of give up. And then at that point, I make them a new email address. So I want everything in one place. Also, Padlet is an actual website. It's a website that is yours, your own, your content, and it's really easy. It's literally just point and click, and then your post is up. So, I forgot I have to use the clicker, sorry. Okay, so in addition to using it as a tool for students, as a student website, you can also use it as a clearinghouse for administrative or teaching resources. So in my program, we have a teacher share Padlet, which is just pretty open-ended. It's sort of a big mess and not organized into any categories, but a lot of my teachers are not tech savvy enough to follow that structure. So I just tell them, here's the link. Anytime you have a new lesson that you created or a website that you found, just put it up there. It's for you. And sometimes I use it for staff for training purposes and things like that. So if you're not teaching or you're an administrator who needs to have all of your staff resources in one place, Padlet is a nice tool. So somebody asked me before, is it free? Oh, God, right? Because we're adult literacy teachers, so we need it to be free, right? It's not free. So like a lot of things, when it was new and shiny, there was a lot more that was free. So initially when Padlet came out, and I started using it almost when it came out, you could make 9 Padlets for free, and you could archive them if you didn't want to use them, and then you would have a space for more. Well, then they got popular, and everybody was using it, and they decided to scale that back to 3 free Padlets, and you can't archive anything. So you have those 3, and if you want to keep them, you're done. If you don't want to keep them, sometimes you use them for a temporary project, you can just delete it, and then that's it. I coordinate a cohort of volunteers who run ESOL conversation groups, and ironically, the volunteers tend to want to use more Padlets than the staff. And the truth is that with Padlet, you sign up with your email, right? They're not collecting anybody's social security number. There's, it's not like Netflix where they're tracking down on, sharing accounts or anything. So the truth is, as I said to one of my volunteers, look, I have an email address. I have a Gmail. That's my personal email. I've got 2 additional Gmails that I use for different parts of my work. And then I have my work email. So I have 4 emails. So essentially I have 12 free Padlets. So if you don't mind that, and you can, keep a nice tidy list of which Padlets you have under which account, then you actually have 12 free Padlets, which is more than you had when it was 9 free Padlets. Okay, you just have to be a little bit organized. Full disclosure, I pay for mine. The Queens Public Library does not reimburse me, but I don't care because I use it for everything. Like I do not think I could do my job without Padlet. And I use it even beyond my job. So when I was packing to come here and I had to bring a lot of things, doing 2 COAB presentations and lots of other things, I usually like to make a checklist, but I put everything on a Padlet that I needed to pack. And as I packed it, I deleted it from the Padlet. And when the Padlet was empty, I deleted the Padlet and I was ready to go. And then I got here and realized I forgot my toothbrush and had to buy another one. So I promise I brushed my teeth. Okay. So sure. Yes. But so here, this is a very tiny screen, and we're going to go into why some of this stuff is so small. So I know those of you who are watching this virtually are probably, using your progressives and trying to see what's going on here. And I'll talk about why some of the font and the graphics are so small. But you'll have access to this presentation. You can look at it as largely as you want to. So there are different plans. The most inexpensive, I'm sorry, is the gold plan, which is $9.99 a month and gives you 20 Padlets. But there are also options for school-based subscriptions. So if, like, I know some people are working for community college programs, for example, or just work with a very large network and might want everybody to have a Padlet. So they have different levels of that, going up to the school-based license, which is $1,000 per year. So, but it depends if that's worth it to your program. I think there are a lot of K-12 schools that do buy a license, or school districts maybe that are buying a license. But for the sake of adult literacy, where funding is always disappearing 5 minutes after we got it, know that you can make them for free. And you can make them with every email address you can. It sounds silly, but I have volunteers that are doing this. They have like 4 Padlet accounts and they have lots of Padlets. All right, so let's take a look at Padlet. So one of the most basic ways to use Padlet is just to make a simple website. And I've been using Padlet for a very long time, but I really started making the class websites during the pandemic when I was teaching virtually. And I was initially doing, that thing where, okay, reminder everybody, we have class tomorrow and we're going to use this worksheet. If you could print it out or look at it on another device, that's great. Or we're going to use this website. And I said, this is ridiculous. And the students were emailing me back. And I said, let me just put this on a Padlet and then everything's here. So I'm going to just share this with you. Okay. So this is during the pandemic, fall 2022. This is for one of my classes. And I'm going to just sort of scroll all the way down. And with Padlet, you can choose to have the newest post on top or all the way on the bottom. So if you want, at the end of the semester, the most recent things to be on top, you can do that. If you want it to go, top down in a different way, you can do that too. And what I did is I would put links that were for homework or things that we looked at in class, all my ventures worksheets here, or items that I wrote for the students. So really just a clearinghouse. But what was nice about this is that if students missed class, they could find it. They always knew what the homework was. If there was a website that we looked at, they didn't have to write down the web address. It's just there for them. And if you open up a document inside Padlet, it just opens up right on your screen. Yeah, I know my computer is not really adjusting to the internet very well in here. So it just opens up right here. So you can also print it out right from here, and you can just close it right from here. And the same thing with links. Links will open up right in Padlet. And then you can just use them from here. So let me go back. Sorry, the Zoom application is in the way of my screen. So, yeah, it doesn't want to pull down for some reason. How about, okay. Excellent, okay. Right. So that's one idea, but how do you get these posts on here? Like I said, it's pretty simple. If I wanted to add a new post right now, let's do it. The class has been over for 3 years. Probably no one's looking at it anymore. You can either double click anywhere on the screen, and then the option to make a post just opens up. You can also hit the plus sign. And there's a settings menu, and I'm not going to delve too much into this, but let me just show you a little bit here. So we can see here the title of my class, of my website. When you make a new Padlet, it tries to be very kitschy and cute, and it will generate a title for you that is something like, My Stupendous, Superly Awesome Padlet. And then you just erase it, unless you want to call it that. You can also add a description, and you can put in an icon, and you can change that icon to anything in your emoji bag of tricks. And you can even upload a little picture if you wanted to put something in there. So if you maybe your school or your professional network has a logo and you want to put that as the little icon in the corner, you can do that. There's also an option to choose your wallpaper. So we've got solid colors and gradients, and this is not fixed. You can have a Padlet for 5 years and then one day decide you just want to change the background and boom, it's done. So you can always change the design. So if you make a Padlet and then someone says, it's a little bit hard to read, the font's too dark, too light, or it's distracting, you can just go change it. So there are, fun textures and patterns that we can play around with, and, art, all sorts of fun things. So depending on how you're feeling, you can make it as creative as you like. Yes. So I'm going to talk about that in a few minutes. So you can give students the option to be able to, they won't have access to the settings. So no. So, if they make their own Padlet, they will, but you can give them the ability to comment, to post things, but not to change the settings of the actual presentation. Yeah. So it's fortunately limited in that way, but I'll show you in a little bit that you can also change how much agency you want the students to have. So if you want them to be able to post something or to comment, you can even restrict what kind of things they can post. So for example, there are options to post YouTube videos on there. Maybe you don't want students posting videos because you don't know what they're going to post, right? And maybe you want to remove that ability, and you can do that. You can change the format. And there are a bunch of formats here, but I'm going to show you ones that are in other formats. And you can choose whether or not students or participants, right? Maybe they're your staff, can comment on the posts. Maybe you don't want that. Maybe you do. Maybe you're specifically looking for feedback, and so you want comments. You can have reactions, right? Likes and thumbs up and things like that we use in social media. And you can choose whether or not, as I said, the first posting is on the top or the bottom. And there. When you sign up for Padlet, it's going to ask you to make a username. I would recommend that if you are using this for your agency, you don't make it something with your first name, because then when you give this out to people, like I'm giving this out to you, it's just going to have your name on it. So I'm meeting you once. Perhaps we'll continue to be in contact for the long haul. That would be wonderful. But anytime you go to share this with somebody, it's going to have my name on it. And they're going to say, who is that? And why does this website address have this random person's name on it? So, mine is QPL. It's Queens Public Library, ESOL, which is a little bit more like agency based as opposed to, personally based. And then so all of your Padlets will be padlet.com/ whatever you decide that username is going to be, and then you have the option to change it. It's going to give you a bunch of like gobbledygook, for a very long web address, and then you can just change it to something that's maybe more relevant or recognizable or easy for your students to remember if it's for them, right? So like this one just says MW Fall because this was a Monday, Wednesday class in the fall semester, and it was a beginning level class. Okay. So, and you can see I've had this Padlet for what, 3 years, almost 3 years, and I was now just able to make changes whenever I wanted to. Okay, let's go back. My goal is to try to get through everything, even though I know in COAB it's never possible, which is why you have the QR code for this. Okay, so this is probably one of my favorite ways to use this, and this is with an interactive student project. And again, if you're not working with students, if you're an administrator, you want to use this for staff or for PD, you can use it in the same way. But we're teachers, so we'd like to do interactive activities with students. So I'm just going to open this one up, but it says here that you can assign individual students or groups sections of a Padlet. So as opposed to the first Padlet that I just showed you, where it was just a big stream, right? Just a post all the way down and you just scroll down. In this one, you can actually divide your Padlet into sections, and you can name the sections. You give them headings, and then you make posts underneath each section. So in this case, what I do is I break the students into groups, and they each get a section that they have to work on. They work together in a group. If it's a virtual class, they can work in a breakout room. But I use this with in-person classes all the time because I have many more of those. And the students work together. They, use their pen and paper to make their notes. And then someone, usually the most tech-savvy student in the group, will be the one who posts their information on here. And as I'll show you in a moment, you can generate a QR code for every Padlet that you make. So what I do is I make the Padlet, I make the activity, I share the QR code with them, and then everybody scans it, and then they get to work. So this is an example of one that I did with a beginning level class when we were talking about foods and the supermarket. And we'd been working on this for quite some time. And we had already discussed all the different sections of the supermarket and possible foods. We'd worked with supermarket circulars and advertisements and whatnot. And then I broke the students into groups and assigned them to a group. So the fruit and veggie group and the dairy group, the meat and seafood group. And they had to come up with examples before they went to the Padlet. This was all pencil and paper. They had to come up with examples. They had to each think of one, or as many as they could, and then they had to post them. And the ones that were a little bit more tech savvy put a picture. Actually, most of them put a picture here, but you can see some of them didn't, and that's okay. I told them that was okay because I was more concerned about the vocabulary than I was about the tech skills. But it was great, and it actually generated some discussions about, okay, well, what pictures should we use for things like this? So you can see here that I was able to break the Padlet up into sections, and I shared the QR code, and I told the students, you're only going to post in your own category. And what was interesting is that there was one student who put eggs in the meat and seafood category, right? And at first I thought, okay, well, he just put it in the wrong section, but he's like, well, it came out of an animal, and right? And so it actually generated a good discussion. And then I was able to just shift it, right? I was able to just shift it into a different category. So nothing is, well, I should say very little is fixed in Padlet. You can always move things around. And then I commented on this. And the reason I commented on this one was because this student was so upset that she was really her English was fairly good for the beginning level class, but really low tech skills, didn't know how to use her phone. And she used her phone when the other students said, I'll upload yours for you. And she said, no, I'm going to do it by myself. And she was so proud that she figured out how to put Apple on there that I had to comment on hers. Just want to keep that positive feedback going, right, wherever we can. So this is a nice project, but you can do this with anything, right? So I'll show you another one later on that I use for volunteers, where there are resources for volunteers, and they're just broken up into different categories to make it easier for them to find something. All right, so in the previous example that I showed you, I shared the QR code. Actually, let me go back to that one. Let's go back to the supermarket one. Let's just talk about the QR code for a minute. So up here towards the top, there's a little arrow that looks like an email forwarding icon. And if I click on this, I've got a lot of options for sharing, right? I could embed it in a website, I could copy the link, or I can just choose to get the QR code, and there it is. For any website that you're on, you're on Google, you're on Amazon, whatever it is, any website that you're on, if you right click, of course it's not doing it for me now. Okay. Because I'm in Zoom maybe. Anyway, if you right click, you can make a QR code. But here, this is a QR code just for this Padlet. So it fortunately comes up in a very large size. It's not just because it's this screen. Actually, on the physical screen, it's very large, so it makes it easy for the students. If they have trouble with it up here, I just let them come in front of my computer to scan it. And I love this because I use Padlet for everything and I use QR codes for everything. And some people who are not that tech savvy say, oh, just give me the web address, but they're everywhere, right? Did anyone go out to a restaurant during the pandemic? They didn't give you a menu, right? They put a QR code on the table, scan and look at our menu. And I was telling some of my students recently that I have a doctor's office that I've been going to for maybe 10 years. And I remember back in the day when I was new there and they gave me a clipboard with paper to fill out my medical history. And then at one point they transitioned to that little iPad like kiosk, come in and sign in on that. And I went there not that long ago and I got there and they got rid of the tablets and there was just a stand like at the restaurant with the QR code, scan this and fill everything out, right? So now the QR code has actually become a survival skill. So I don't care how tech savvy they are in other things, they need to know how to use this. And so the first time I use a QR code, even if it's not with a Padlet, I make sure that everybody understands how to do it. I'll help them scan it, I'll help them click on it, and then I help them save it, like favorite it or bookmark, because 9 times out of 10, they come back to the next class and say, teacher, it went away, right? And I couldn't do the homework because it went away. So this way I show them how to use it and how to save it. So Padlet is all about the QR codes. Yes. I'll help you after class. So, okay. But with this project, as I said, I shared the QR code with the entire class, and I just told them, look, if you're in the snack section, you're only going to post under here. But if you are concerned that they're going to be cross-posting or that something's going to go wrong, or you don't want them to see what the others are posting, right? It's very hard sometimes when we have a large class and you put people into groups and you say, okay, everybody come up with a list of XYZ, and it's so loud that everyone can hear what everyone else is doing, and one group goes, oh yeah, what they said, let's put that down. You don't want that to happen, right? You don't want them to all be posting at the same time. You can actually, oopsies. You can actually create breakout rooms. So this is done in the same place where you create the QR code in the share panel. And over here, it says breakout rooms. So if I click on this, it's going to let me copy the link or even make a QR code for each individual section. So I could give each group their own QR code. But what will happen is on my end, when I'm looking at it live, I will see everything get posted in real time, but they won't see it until I share the full Padlet with them. So that's a really nice feature if you just want to make sure they're not copying or they're working independently. Or again, because of tech skills, you're just worried that it's going to be like a mishmash and you want it to come out nicely. So that's a nice option as well. Okay. Okay, this is my other favorite, the interactive map. Okay, and we're going to play with this a little bit because this is the first QR code on your handout. And if you're with me virtually, the QR code is going to show up on the next slide. So with the interactive map, students or staff, we're all staff today and we're going to play with it, can choose places on a map and post it. So I had a high intermediate level class. We were using a reading, I think it was Inventors 4, that happened to be about world wedding customs. And then afterwards, I wanted to hear what the wedding traditions were in their countries. But I thought, what better way to look at this than to actually see these places on the map and have them post on the map. So I'm just gonna, a second before we go there, let me click on this and show you what mine looked like. And then we'll practice it a little bit together. Okay, so this is the one that my class generated. So you have the option in the settings to have this this guide over here, or you can have it hidden. That's fine too. But you can see all these little pins that look like when you look up directions on Google Maps, it shows you where you are. And let's go over here to Guinea. And so this is what my student posted. He said that in his country, they prepare African food and the woman and the man wear the same African uniform, and he put the specific location where he's from, and that's really nice. And I had a student in my class who was from Ukraine, and she was definitely the most tech savvy in the class. She was also 21, which probably was not a coincidence that she was the most tech savvy. And so she actually figured out how to put a picture of a garment from her country's wedding tradition. So how do you do this? How do you get these on here? Well, it's just like anything in Padlet. It's point and click and post. So if I go to the plus sign down here, I have a couple of options for adding to the Padlet. I can take the pin and just drop it there. And if this location is good for me, then I can keep it there. The other way that I can do this is I can just search for a place, right? So we can search for Dallas, Texas, because why not? We're here, right? And I can write something. At the moment, I'm not going to write anything just for argument's sake, but I could write something. And now it put the pin on Dallas, Texas over here. And everything that's added to the map will then be over here. So what I could do is instead of, let's say we're over here where we started, and I need to travel over to South America, and I don't want to fly all the way over there, I can just go down here and say, okay, well, let's see what this person from the Dominican Republic posted. And if I click on that location in the key on the side, it'll just take me to that spot on the map. And what was really nice about this is the students were really proud of it because they felt like it was something that they created just for the class. So when you do it on the computer, everything's nice and big. We know that when you do anything on your phone, it's teeny tiny. But keep in mind that if you're having students do this, they're going to be doing it on their phones. You could have them sit with laptops, but does anybody have a computer lab? Some people do, right? Okay. But with the scanning of the code, everything is on the phone, right? So it's a little bit of a learning curve for everybody. So if it's a learning curve for you, let's learn, okay? Let's do it. So if you're at home virtually, you can scan the QR code. If you're here with me now, you can scan it here, or you can just scan it on the handout. And I'll leave the screen up for a moment so people can scan it wherever they are. And we're going to do a little map Padlet about our favorite vacation spots. So if you don't want to participate, you don't have to. It's okay. It's just COAB. It's not no requirements. But if you want to play along, you can. And what I'll tell you is that it is going to look different on your phone than it will on your computer or other device that you're working on. So let me just go to mine. Okay. So if you're using this on your phone, which I think everybody is, even if you're at home virtually, you might be using this on your phone. I don't know if the home people can see this, but on the phone, the button to add is right down in the center. It's sort of a purplish color with a plus sign. And if you click on the plus sign, you're going to see that same option either to place a pin on the map or to type in your location. And once you've done that, like I've already put one on, but I'm going to do one on the phone. So let's see. I'll type in Dallas, Texas, because this is my first time in Texas, and now it's my new favorite place. Okay, so I'm going to type in Dallas, Texas. And when you find the location, it gives you the option to write something. So if you don't want to, you don't have to. Like I tell my students, you don't have to. If I'm just asking for your favorite destinations for vacation, and you say, I like going to Dallas, I'm okay with that. But maybe you like going to Reunion Tower, right? Maybe there's something that you really like about that. And so I'm going to just put in the Reunion Tower. And, I always tell my students, I'm not concerned with spelling. I'm not concerned with these things because I know that the tech is hard for them. I just want to see that they came up with something that's relevant to the activity and that they're participating, because that other stuff we can fix later. So I've now just put a pin on Dallas, and let me bring this one up. Okay. Okay, so, and I can see that people are adding to it now. So this is what it looks like. And I see we've got a bunch in the United States. We've got some internationally, which is lovely. And of course, just like any, like if you use Google Maps, you can Move it all around any way that you like. I did have one student in a beginning level class that I taught who did not have a phone. And I let her come up and do this on my computer screen. I, worked with her to do it. And because she didn't have a phone, she became pretty good at using the laptop. So I let her actually come up and do it from here so that she could participate. I didn't want that to restrict her ability to participate in the activity. Obviously, if it's for homework or if you have virtual classes, right, they really need to have that secondary device to participate in that. Well, let's take a look. So I can go by the list or I can just click on the pins. So, and I see that someone has put a picture from Estes Park, Colorado. Right. So just like any Padlet post, you can name the place and then you can add detail if you want. So you have the option to add as much as you want or add absolutely nothing and just name the place. So I have someone that put Hawaii, made a comment. Full disclosure, I did this earlier because this was my daughter's favorite vacation spot. And she said, put Hershey. And I said, all right, Hershey's going up there. And she found this picture for me because she's 9 and pretty easy for her to figure out how to do this after seeing it once. And this is really nice because it's fun. And I have also used this usually with higher level students on that first day of class. So on the first day of class, you always do those icebreakers, and we want to know where everybody's from. Everybody stand up, say your name, say where you're from, and your favorite vacation spot, something like that, or your favorite food, right? Whatever we do for those icebreakers to sort of find out where everyone in the class is from. Before Padlet had this option to make maps, I just used to use Google Maps, and I would project the map of the world. I would make it small enough so we could get everything. And I used to take Post-its and just stick them on the screen. And then when Padlet came out with this, I was like, oh my God, it's my Post-it activity, but it's now on Padlet. So, and I did not get a royalty for that, unfortunately. So, okay. So this is really fun, and you can really, really just do it with anything. And in terms of how do you get this map, where does this come from? When you are on Padlet, in fact, let's just go to Padlet for a minute before I continue with the presentation. So I want to try to get through everything. I'm just going to show you a little bit about the dashboard. So once you've made a lot of Padlets, your home screen will look like this. These are just my recent ones. So if I go to Made by Me, I have these, and I have many more that are archived. So it'll always look like this. So you have to sift through everything. The ones that you've used the most recently will pop up first. If you have ones that you haven't used in 6 months, they're somewhere, or they may have been archived. You can choose to archive them, or if they're really old, Padlet will archive them for you if you're using the paid version. If you're using the free version, they're just going to stay there, and they won't be archived automatically. If we want to make a new Padlet, let me just open this up quickly. We have the option to do a blank board. Ignore the sandbox. We're going to use that in a few minutes. And like everything else, Padlet has jumped on the AI bandwagon. I'm going to talk about that if we have time at the end. The AI Padlets do probably what you would imagine they do. You tell them what you want on your Padlet, what's the topic, find me this, find me this, find me this. Like a lot of AI, it's frighteningly accurate and quick, and I have mixed feelings about it. Sometimes I've needed to whip up something quickly. Other times I'm like, I love Padlet and I love teaching, and I feel like this took away my ownership and my creativity. And sometimes it's just not right. Sometimes I say, I'm looking for, a Padlet with a list of all the museums in New York City, and it gave me just art museums, for example. And if you've ever been to New York City, we have like hundreds of museums of anything you could possibly think of, and it just wasn't enough. But you go with the blank board, and it will choose for you a background. And again, you're not stuck with this. It gives you a title. You're not stuck with this. If you like this, you can have it. I always know when someone is just starting to use Padlet and they send me theirs because it's always called my fancy Padlet or my stupendous Padlet. And although I did have a student tell me, I think mine's fancy, I wanted to keep it. Like you do you, right? And so we could see here that there's a map option. So if you choose map, then your Padlet will just turn into a map. So if I click on this, that background that it came with turns into a map. Those sections that we had on the side where we could see the list of all the postings, they're off by default, but you can turn them on. And then we can see the list. There are also options to make a stream, which is what I did with the class website that I showed you in the first example. There's an option to do like a timeline where it goes horizontally in sections. There's what they call a canvas where things will just sort of be, it's like a sideways stream, and they're sort of, the lineup is a bit, what to say, it's not even. And then there's also a grid format that you can have. And no matter what you do, you can choose to have the sections on or off. So when I made the one for the supermarket, I used the grid format and I chose to have the sections on. And then you can play with it at your will, right? And do all sorts of things. You can, while we're in here playing with the settings, you can also change the color scheme of the posts. So by default, it's on light. So if I click to post something, it's going to be white by default. So let's publish that. So I see here that it's white. If I want to change the color, I can go to edit, and down here I can change the color. If I find that this is too light, right, this is a light background, maybe I don't like how light that post is, I can change the color scheme so that it's dark. So there are a lot of like fun sort of artsy things that you can do with it. And is it as fancy as Canva? If you want to make something fancy, of course not, but it's user-friendly. And it's user-friendly even for your students. If you wanted to give students, they can make 3 free Padlets. You can help them sign up for an account. They can just make a Padlet, and it's super, super simple. Okay, let's go back and look at some other ones that I made to show you some other options. So something else that I've done is I've used Padlet to make a toolbox of specific resources for an activity. So I know as teachers, we like to write a lot of our own material, but we also like to source from what's out there. And that's great too. And sometimes I find these websites where someone has written an amazing activity where they have worksheets and teacher instructions. They've got bingo games and vocabulary flashcards, and it's a lot. And like, how can you share all that with people? So, for example, I did not write these activities. I can't remember where they're from, but if we open it up, I'm sure that there's a citation. But this great program wrote these wonderful activities for clothing. So they have pictures of clothing with vocabulary words. Then they have them without the words. They've got bingo cards, which are super fun. I've used these a lot. And they've also got a list of the words with no pictures, right? And we know that we can manipulate these kinds of activities, these printables in different ways. Pictures of vocabulary in context and with and without labels, and even some vocabulary exercises that you can do along with the answers. So what I did is I made a Padlet, I made a grid, and I put it in sections, just like this, so that my teachers and my volunteers could use this and know where everything was. And you can see this little closet behind here is not one of the Padlet backgrounds. It's not one of the Padlet wallpapers. I wanted it to be sort of kitschy and go with the theme. So when it came time for the wallpaper, I found a picture. I found a picture and I saved it to my computer, and then I uploaded it. So you can put a picture of anything and make that your background. Yeah, it's really cool. Yeah, when I saw this, I was like, wow, that looks cool. I was very proud of, I was proud of Padlet, I should say. So, and you can see I found a little coat icon here. So it came together very nicely. I'm proud of it. But more importantly, the resources are there and they're easy to use. So that's another idea. Okay. And the other way to use this is I have a resource bank. And this looks similar to 2 other ones that we've seen. This is a grid in sections. But in terms of uses for this, right, we can use it for students, for a class website. We can use it for activities that they can participate in. But you can also use it for staff. And like I said, I have a large bank of volunteers that run ESOL conversation groups. And so I have a little resource bank here. Things that I've found, some things that I've written, some things that I found. Whenever I find new resources, I put them up here. And I even have things over here like tips and guidelines. There's a sign-in sheet they have to use every week. So sort of like the more housekeeping and training end of things. And this is great because my volunteers know that they can just come on here and look for something that they can use. Or if they've used it once, they know it's always here for them to find again. Just as an aside, by the way, if you've never seen this, the story dice is really fun. I've used this over and over again. There's a 9 dice and a 5 dice version. And you can roll it or you can share it with students and have them roll it. And just like with anything, there's so much that you can do with this. So here, these are all in sections. So my volunteers know that if they're looking for a certain kind of resource, they can check that section for those. So that's something else that I've done. And these are for my volunteers, but they're for everybody, right? For your volunteers, for your staff, for you. You have access to this, so click on it and feel free to use it. Okay, so something that is new-ish, and I know we don't have a lot of time, but is the slide presentation. So I was telling some people before that I did another presentation yesterday about figurative language, and I used Canva because I found a template in there that I thought was really fun, and I used it. And you can tell that this presentation that I'm using is sort of bare bones in terms of its graphics. I can't really change the font size or the color. It's really just sort of plain and as is. But I wanted to use the Padlet slide presentation in the Padlet presentation to show you what you can do with this. So you can create your own slideshow from scratch. And really what you're doing is it's the same thing as Padlet. It's just telling you you're going to post things and those things will become your slides. In the interest of time, I'm not going to play this video, but you have access to it. It's a video that Padlet made to walk you through how to make a slideshow. But the thing that's really cool about this is that if you don't have a slideshow already made, you can turn any Padlet that you have into a slideshow. So here I am on my Padlet that's for my ESOL conversation group facilitators. And let's say I'm doing a training for them. And I say, let's do a little training to just review all the possible resources that you could have. Over here in my tool panel over here, I have a button that looks like the play button on a video. And if I click this, now my Padlet is turned into a slideshow. Yeah. So I actually made this from scratch as a slideshow, but I could have just made it as a Padlet and then turned it into a slideshow. So you have 2 options. So it's a nice way to share something that you have in a presentation mode. As maybe you don't want to send somebody the QR code or the link. You want to actually present it and talk about all, specifically all the resources that you have. You can turn it into a presentation. So that is a pretty neat feature. So the presentation itself is really super bare bones compared to Google Slides or, to Canva or even to PowerPoint. But the fact that you have this flexibility to make your own website and then turn it into a presentation is really, really an amazing feature. And I've used this a lot. All right, so I think we have time. We can try this. So the other thing that's fairly new for Padlet is Sandbox. And Padlet got really lucky that Google got rid of Jamboard because they said, well, we're going to jump on that and catch all the Jamboard people. And it's Jamboard. That's basically what it is. So you've got a QR code on your handout, or for those of you who are joining me at home, it's on the screen here. And it's pretty low stakes. We're going to be talking about your favorite things so far about COAB. And I'll leave that up just for a moment, and then I'll take you to it. But if you're clicking on the QR code and you're going right to it, let me bring it up on my phone. You'll see, I know the people at home you might not be able to see, but I don't know how well you guys can see from here. We've got an option to put a sticky note. So it looks like a little square with a piece that's folded down in the corner, and that's where you're going to post. So if you click the sticky note button, it gives you the option to choose a color for your sticky note. So you choose the color, and all you do is just touch the board, right? It's like any Padlet operation, just point and click. So choose the sticky note, choose the color, put it there, and then tap on it and just start typing. And then your data will just go into the sticky note, right? And so many uses for what was Jamboard, right? For collaborative efforts. I think I can think of so many trainings I've been to, even in-person trainings, where they've asked for Jamboard in the past just to get some ideas up on the board in a pretty easy way. So I'm just going to transfer to that Padlet here. And you can move things around, right? And you used to be able to do this on Jamboard too. If someone put their sticky note on top of yours, you can move theirs. I can move things around. I can pick them up and move them over like this. There are a number of other features here. So if you're designing the sandbox, you can put pictures here. Just upload a picture just the way that you would with anything else in Padlet. You can also add some shapes. You can choose the color for your shapes. Just put them on there so you can make it a little decorative, or you can also choose to use a pen and do a little bit of drawing. I've sometimes disabled that when I do this with students because they just doodle all over the screen. Usually not for fun, usually by accident. There's also a highlighter feature, so if I want to circle, highlight this one here, I can do that. So it's the kind of thing that you can play with over and over. So, okay. I don't want to cut people off from the activity, but I want to get through a few more things in the interest of time, because I'm going to be one of those people that's got those 5 slides left over, which is why I gave you the QR code initially. And for everybody who's virtual, I gave the option to scan the QR code, but I'm going to be putting the slides in the Hoover chat, so you'll have access to it. Let me just go back to our presentation for a few moments, just so I can get through a few things that I want to show you. And before we do that, though, because we do have time for this, I'm just going to go to Padlet for a minute. If we are making a new Padlet, this is the one I just started to make before, and I showed you how to make a post, right? You're just going to either click on the screen, or you can point and click, and you can write anything that you like. And then you can add a little something that will appear below. I'm typing with one hand, so I'm not getting too fancy right now. And which is probably something closer to what my students would do. So I can publish it. So there's a heading, and then there's a little bit down here. But if I want to add something to it, I can. If I want to upload a document that's on my computer, I can do that. I can upload a picture. I can upload a file. Really anything that I want, I can upload. Anything for work or for class. I can put a link in, so I can just type the link. I can use my device's camera to take a picture, because I can upload a picture, I could take one. I can search for something. I can search for an image, a YouTube video, a website. I can even search for a Spotify song. So there are also those search options if you're not really sure what you're looking for. And down here it says plus 13. So there are a lot of options for things that you can add to each post. So the ones that I showed you are there. You can also record a video right there, which is great. You can draw something. You can put in a poll. You can upload something from your Google Drive. You can put in an AI-generated image or speech. I don't know how I feel about these ones. The AI images, well, like most AI images, are a little creepy, and I don't usually use them. And the Spotify I have used before, right? You want to put in a link to a song. Certainly the YouTube I have used beforehand, so we have so many options. And again, if you are making a website that your students or even your staff are going to use, and you don't want them to have the option to upload some of these items, you can actually change that in the settings. In the moderation settings, all of these settings here will allow you to restrict what type of items people can upload and if they can put comments. So there's a lot of flexibility, and you have a lot of ownership over what you're sharing that you want people to participate in. Or you just want them to view it, so you don't want them to be able to add anything at all. Okay, so, and again, you have this entire presentation, so you can view this on your own, but there's a QR code here. For the people at home, if you've already scanned the QR code, great. If not, I'm gonna go through it, but you'll have access to this in the slides. I just wanna show it to everybody. So I made some walkthrough videos of myself making some of these types of Padlets from scratch. So you can watch me in real time go click on this, click on this, click on this. So I made those videos and then, oh, God. All right, that's because I edited it. I'll fix this. It was working as of the end of the morning session when I ran up to my hotel room to make sure it was working. Let me see why it's not working. I will have it fixed today though. And, but these are videos that I made that will just help you. You can just watch them step by step, click on this, click on this, click on this. Also, you don't have to take it from me, you can learn from Padlet. So on Padlet, you have an option to watch a lot of different videos about how to use all of their features, even just from getting started to lots of nitty-gritty things. How do you post a link? How you can password protect your Padlet. And you can see they're pretty short. They're like, 20 seconds at most. So there are a lot of options there to learn from scratch. I know we have to wrap up in a few minutes. And then, okay, so I don't know how many people have been checking their work email regularly since they've been here. I've been sort of doing it intermittently. And when I went in on Sunday night, and even Sunday night, it wasn't even Monday, and I had 85 emails. And when I went in last night, I had 320. And I'm just sifting through things that are actually important, actually dire. Like I don't need somebody's lesson plan. I can look at that when I get back. But a volunteer who got to the library and it was closed and there was no staff there, I had to address this, right? So, so when I went in on Sunday night, Padlet said, we have new features. And I was like, why? Why now? And Padlet is doing a training on these new features tomorrow. Right, so I can't even go. But those things are recorded and you can watch them later. And the truth is the training is on their new features. And so if you're fairly new to Padlet, I wouldn't start with that one. But one of these new features that I saw in this email, so I went and learned it real fast. Instead of going to the gym, I went onto Padlet and learned this real fast in like 10 minutes. So I apologize if it's kind of rudimentary. They came up with some more AI-powered tools for teachers. And I took this language directly from the email that they sent me, full disclosure. So I just want to show you quickly what it looks like. It looks like this. And you really can just choose, if you have a link, you can choose to upload it and embed it into these tools on here, or you can choose one of these tools that they have here. So just so I could play with it, just so I could show you, I chose to make a multiple choice quiz. So I'm just gonna click on this again so you can see what it looks like if you try to do that. And I put in adult education, but K to 12, you can do whatever you like. And I put in that my objective was to have students be able to recognize the correct usage of irregular verbs in the past tense. In the simple past is what I wrote. And then I think I put 5 questions. And so you can see that it generated this for me. So I didn't write these questions. It took the AI frighteningly about 45 seconds to come up with this. And I was like, oh, it's a pretty decent quiz, right? But look, the truth is, we're proud as teachers of the things that we do, but we're also strapped for time. We're strapped for money. I mean, I'm doing 3 full-time jobs and we have 15,000 students a year. Sometimes you need something quickly. Sometimes, I'm not teaching this fiscal year because I'm managing 5 different grants and supervising tons of people. But whenever a teacher is out, usually I'm the one that is the sub. And sometimes a teacher will call 20 minutes before they're supposed to be there and say, I just threw up on the subway. And I'm like, Oh, but I was doing a regular simple pass. I'm like, okay, here, this is what we're doing with your class today. So there is something to this, having that flexibility there. So this is their new tool that I just learned about and ran up after the morning session to throw on this Padlet so I could let you know about it. But the webinar tomorrow that they're doing, they will record that. And so if you're on the Padlet homepage and you go to their Learn tab, eventually that one that will show up too. And you can like subscribe so that you get emails when there are new trainings. And the last thing I'll show you before we wrap up, and hold on. Okay, is this, I didn't make this. This is Padlet's, what they call their PD 101 course, where they have a bunch of training videos and they talk you through how to make different kinds of Padlets and how to present them. And you go through all of these training videos. And then when you complete it, you fill out a form and they'll send you a certificate. So it's actually kind of nice because for the funding that we're under, I have to do 14 hours of PD for the fiscal year, probably all done this week. But sometimes you need something to show, hey, I took a training. This is self-paced. So really anyone could just fill out the form, but hopefully we're honest. And if you've actually gone through these, you really will be well-versed in how to use Padlet. So I know we're supposed to end at 4:10, 3:10, right? Okay, 3:10. I didn't change my computer. It says Central Time. It just wasn't worth it to me. So that's pretty much it. So I know we have to go and you have to go, but if you want to stay for a minute, if you have any questions, I'll take a few questions if you have questions. But actually, before you step out, don't step out yet. I have one more slide to show you. Sorry. Don't step out. Don't step out. Hold on a second. I have too many tabs open. Before you go, let me share with you one last slide. Because I have a QR code that you can scan. And again, you have all of this in here, but let me go here. Okay. This QR code is my contact information. So you can email me at mkotler@queenslibrary.org. If you scan this QR code, this will take you to my digital business card that has the library website and my email and my work phone number. I think my WhatsApp as well. So please, we don't have a lot of time, but please definitely contact me if you have questions. I do a lot of Padlet trainings periodically for my staff, my volunteers. If you want more training on this, send me an email. I'm happy to hop on a Zoom with you for a half hour and just talk you through stuff. You could even share your screen to show me what you're doing, and I could tell you, click this, click this. So very happy to do that for you because I love Padlet. So, all right. Thank you so much, everybody. No, I'm not going to move it. I'll leave it up here. But while you're still here, if you have questions, either people in the chat or in the room, I'm happy to take questions if you have. I know you want to know how to save your, okay. Great, I'm glad. Yeah, I'm glad.